Now this story from the BBC, EU referendum, government dossier aims to smoke out Leave campaign. The government has published an analysis of the UK's options if it left the EU, suggesting they would all be worse for the economy than staying in. Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond said the aim was to smoke out Leave campaigners who had avoided spelling out their vision of a post-EU Britain. Now, I've had quite a few people ask me about the EU and do I think there's going to be a Brexit. Now, I personally don't think it will happen, friends, even though there's a lot of talk about it happening and even characters like the Mayor of London are backing a Brexit. But this goes completely against the globalist regime to see the world come under a global governing body. Now, whatever happens, it's going to be messy, in or out. Now, I'm hoping for an out, but don't be surprised, friends, if at the last minute it's stacked in favour of staying in. And I do wonder, friends, if the media was only talking about Britain staying in, there could even be cases of civil unrest in the country. So this, as I said, friends, may be a way to keep everything calm and then right at the last minute decide that there's actually a vote and the majority are wanting to stay in. Anyway, let's see what happens. As I say, friends, I really am praying that we come out. Now, why do I say, friends, that I think we'll probably stay in? Because the EU has been set up to destroy Britain and other member countries. It's been designed that way, to destroy sovereignty and replace it with its own superpower, an EU superstate that will merge with the US and other unions. I talk about this in my book, and just last month the US and EU held free trade talks in Brussels. That's the merging of the EU with the US that Bush, Merkel and Barroso signed, which is now near completion. Now, that destruction of sovereignty has been happening in many ways for many years, and it's happening now, friends, before our very eyes through the present migrant crisis. The EU migrant crisis is undermining our culture. This is not random happenstance, this is orchestrated. And you only need to do the research, friends, and find the evidence is all there. For instance, Peter Sutherland, who is the United Nations Special Representative for International Migration, said it himself back in 2012, and you can read this on the BBC archives. And he said that the EU should do its best to undermine the homogeneity of its member states, and homogeneity basically means of being all the same or of the same kind. They want to undermine that, friends. They want to destroy that. He said states have to become more open in terms of people who inhabit them. Why? Because then, friends, any sense of patriotism is then destroyed in individual nations if you replace them with what has been coined a multicultural society. You see, friends, it's simply not enough to unite the countries together. One must also unite the people together too. Mix them all up until you have a truly global society without any sense of individuality at all. It's sovereign nations with patriotic people who care about their own country and its unique culture and way of life that stands in the way of the globalist machine. Once we have a global society, then we will have a global governance. And once we have a global governance, friends, it will not be long until the complete fulfillment of the Bible prophecies that tell us specifically that the world will come under the rule of a global power headed by a global leader and also headed by a global religious leader. Friends, it's time, more than ever, to keep our eyes peeled.